Steve Jobs, the computer wizard who started Apple, then rejuvenated the company by introducing the iPod, iPhone, and iPad, has resigned as CEO. Jobs says he can no longer handle the workload, but wishes to remain in a leading role with Apple. He has taken 3 medical leaves over the years, survived pancreatic cancer, and received a liver transplant. In his resignation letter, Jobs wrote, quote, "I have always said if there ever came a day when I could no longer meet my duties and expectations as Apple's CEO, I would be the first to let you know. Unfortunately, that day has come." For more this morning, we are joined by CNET's senior editor, Stein. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah.
All right, so in that letter, he did not cite specific reasons for this resignation as CEO. Are we to assume it's health related?
We can guess that. I mean, he always said that that time would come, and he's been in and out with leaves of absence and has been sick for years. So whether or not it's very acute or whether it's something maybe slightly more down the road, it seems likely, though we don't know yet.
As I mentioned, he has left before. Do you think this time it's for good?
This time, yeah, he's never resigned before. He's stepped down for leaves of absence, but the resignation is and announcing Tim Cook as the CEO is a pretty permanent move.
Yeah, we're going to get to Tim Cook in just a second, but he is going to stay on in some capacity, correct?
Yeah, he's going to be chairman of the board, and he's going to be there as their shareholder and you know, advising, and you know, I think that's a very comforting factor, especially when you have the iPhone 5 coming out, iCloud. There are a lot of new industries that Apple's going into and new software updates. That's a very transitional period in some ways with iCloud, so it'd be very helpful to have his advice on that.
How important is it for him to have his hand in that? Because he's been credited with a lot of Apple's products, the iPad, the iPod, you know, all these different things. Is it important? I mean, is it a reflection of Steve Jobs that in order for Apple to continue as we know it, he needs to be a part of that?
Well, I mean, he's revolutionized computing, he's revolutionized the music industry, he's revolutionized the phone industry. It seems like he's on the verge of you know, they're revolutionizing publishing at this point, maybe home entertainment in the future.
What can't the man do?
Yeah, and I think that, you know, so much of that has been set in motion, and Apple set so much of that in motion. This has been one of the longest and well-planned, I think, transition periods for a change in CEO, possibly ever, that I can think of in technology, because it's been known about, and there have been years setting this up with the team at Apple. So it seems like if there's ever a time where people are ready for the transition, Apple would be it. Of course, there's no one who's going to be like Steve Jobs, right, as far as that visionary, that charisma, you know, that type of leadership.
What do you make of the timing, though? Because just a few weeks ago, we saw that Apple had surpassed Exxon as the most valuable public company out there.
Well, it's hard timing, obviously, because you know, you take that point of leadership. On the other hand, across the tech industry, there's been all sorts of chaos. You know, with HP, you know, Google's made interesting moves acquiring Motorola, but you know, there's no great leadership, I feel like, anywhere in the tech industry right now. And so, you know, Apple was at the forefront with that. If it ends up being a slightly wavy period right now, they still stand to have great leadership going forward because of all of the projects and all of the technology that they already have out there worldwide. Let's
get back to Tim Cook, who will be stepping in now that Steve Jobs is resigning. What do we know about him? I mean, he's essentially been kind of running the ship as well for the past, what, 7 years?
Yeah, he's been Chief Operating Officer, and he's also stepped in for several quarters with Apple. The iPhone 3GS launch, he was there for the keynote, and he took over while Steve Jobs had a leave of absence. He's been there along with Steve for a lot of the keynotes recently. You've actually seen a lot of the Apple team presenting at a lot of them along with Steve Jobs, and that's been intentional to introduce you to the team, to get you used to the group, and to pave this road to get them acquainted with us, with the public, and with people, tech journalists, so that we don't feel that it's that sharp a transition.
So how will he make Apple different? Do you expect him to do that in any way?
Well, during the time with Tim Cook, over the past few years, they've been streamlining, they've been finding ways to you know, make the manufacturing process even more efficient, saving Apple money along the way. So you know, I think efficiency, you know, there's the question of, sure, what the next great product will be.
Will that be his signature on it?
Right, but then, you know, you look at Jonathan Ive and the presence he had in design, who's with Apple, and you know, how many people there that already have great ideas, and if there's already there are probably products that are already in incubation at this point that may not have seen the light of day. We'll see some of that stuff in the queue most likely over the next few years, and that's the sort of stuff that, you know, Steve Jobs has been there working on.
Even though Tim Cook has been on for quite some time, once we got news that Steve Jobs is resigning, we saw, Apple stock fall in after-hours trading. It's going to be interesting to see where the futures go. But what does this say to people who own Apple stock? Should they be worried?
Well, it's definitely going to fluctuate, and it's unclear, what at one point there might be a plateau, but Apple's just in so many different industries right now, and again, taking such a leadership role that I think, if they had been on the cusp of doing that, maybe, but in some of those industries, and especially in the phone industry and the mobile computing industry with the iPad, they're great strength positions, so those are still slated to grow, and so I feel like there are still good days ahead. There's a question, though, if you enter a new industry, will they be able to leap into that and reinvent themselves again, chameleon-like as they've been able to do? That's, to me, the big question several years down the road.
I'll be watching and probably be asking you several years down the road.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. We do appreciate Scott Stein with CNET.